So a person on inspection, if you've heard about it for a few minutes or an hour, your immediate reaction is cryptocurrency. Crypto is some kind of digital something, and currency, it must be a currency. And people go back and they say, well, it must be a currency because the front page of the white paper said a peer-to-peer, electronic cash system. And so most of all the debates and the criticism in this entire industry are just about semantics and words and interpretation of words. And oftentimes people will just hear one of those words, and based upon their life experience and what they learned in school or what they've learned in business, they will immediately come to a conclusion, which is either an economic opinion or a political opinion or an academic opinion, without first stopping to discuss what the words mean and even if the words are relevant. For example, peer-to-peer. Well, what's a peer? Well, a Bank of Japan is a peer of Bank of England, right? So maybe Satoshi meant it was a peer-to-peer system to move a monetary asset between the central banks or between commercial banks or between Apple and Google and corporations. And if you interpreted the peers as megacorps, or mega commercial banks or countries, you would have a different view than, oh, peer, that just means a consumer like me, and I want to send $5 to my friend. And that means Satoshi meant Bitcoin was to send $5 between 8 billion people peer to peer, right? And of course, if you think the latter, you have a totally different opinion of whether it works or doesn't work versus if you think the former. So what's the definition of peer? Now, what's the definition of cash? Well, a lot of people think cash is the dollars in their pocket or the fiat currency, $5 bills or $20 bills. And so they think peer-to-peer digital cash. Okay, well, I want to send $20 bills from person to person to buy coffee because that's what I do with $20 bills. And so then it becomes a big debate. Well, obviously, it's not very good for buying coffee. A billion people can't buy coffee with it. It keeps changing in price. So it must not be a success. But of course, that hinges upon you redefining cash or defining cash as fiat currency in small denominations. But of course, when the King of Spain wanted to finance the war in the Netherlands, he sent a fleet of ships with a bunch of gold in their holds to pay for the entire war effort. That was cash. That fleet washed up on the shores of Queen Elizabeth. She stole the gold. It bankrupted the Spanish Netherlands war effort, and the result is a Protestant Netherlands. But is $1 billion of gold cash. And so when Satoshi said, well, peer-to-peer electronic cash, maybe what Satoshi meant was sending $1 billion of gold between the Bank of England and the Bank of Japan or the Swiss bank or Citigroup or JP Morgan. Okay, well, if you interpreted the words that way, right, cash is money, money cash. JP Morgan says gold is money, everything else is credit, right? If you interpreted cash as money and not credit, and peer-to-peer as any two counterparties, okay, well then maybe Bitcoin isn't digital currency at all, right? Digital currency, probably the best example of a true digital currency or close to it right now would be a tether, a stable coin. And if I could move a stable coin, $87 worth of it at the speed of light on a crypto rail, no KYC, no regulatory controls, with complete privacy, that feels like digital currency, completely private digital currency. Okay, so now if I say to you, well, do you like Bitcoin? And you think, oh, Bitcoin, the digital currency? Well, then you might very well answer like, a certain politician answered a few years ago, like, no, I like the dollar better. Okay, because you thought the Bitcoin was competing with the dollar and you thought someone was asking you whether we're going to replace the dollar with Bitcoin. So if you think it's digital currency and you think the euro, the yen, the dollar are currency, then the implication is, well, we're just going to replace the currency of your nation, whether it's the dollar, the euro, or the yen, or the CNY. We're going to replace it with Bitcoin. Now you end up with the entire establishment, every establishment politician, most bankers, most traditional economists pushing back and resisting it. And The politicians will resist it because nobody wants to collapse the dollar. It's a source of American strength. It's probably worth trillions of dollars a year to the US. So obviously we know why we like that if you're an American politician. On the other hand, if you're a classically trained economist, you say, oh, well, the dollar, it needs to be stable and we need to be able to inflate the currency supply and everything's priced in dollars. And so that's a reason for classical economists to dislike it and criticize it. And if you're an accountant, you would say, well, it turns out that every major corporation in the world has accounting systems, SAP, Oracle. They've spent more money in those accounting systems than almost anything else. I mean, a lot of big companies have spent billions and billions of dollars on accounting systems. They're all wired in euros and dollars and yen and CNY. And if you, as CEO, came along and said, hey, we're just going to replace our US dollar-based accounting systems with another system, the board of directors would fire you. The entire finance department would quit. All your shareholders would walk away from the stock. Probably your accountants would withdraw noisily, and your company would collapse. So that doesn't work. So you can see how simply by choosing the word digital currency, I will get a negative pushback reaction. Now, if I roll the word to digital gold, well, a lot of times you go to 1,000 rich families and you say, hey, do you like Bitcoin? It's digital gold. And they say, oh, well, that's interesting. I don't own any gold. Okay, name me one billionaire that ever made $1 billion investing in gold. There isn't any. I can't name a single billionaire that will attest to actually owning $1 billion of gold. I can't name a single family out of 10,000 wealthy families that would ever say, well, we made billions of dollars and we bought $1 billion of gold. Okay, so, well, gold's defective. I could tell you why in 2 hours, but what does it matter? The point is we fixed it with Bitcoin. Everybody can say, okay, well, so I suppose you fixed something I didn't like. It's a crappy commodity. And so good for you, but I don't own any. Okay, so that takes you a different path. Now, let's say we change it to digital property. Okay, well, you want to buy $1 billion of Bitcoin. Oh, it's digital gold. No, I'm not going to. They're going to 6102 me. I heard the government seizes gold when it gets to be too much. You think it's gold and you're afraid that the government will seize it because it backs the currency, because that's your historic mindset. If I say to a wealthy person, you want to buy $1 billion of property? Where? Miami Beach? Yeah, sure. How about New York? Yeah, sure. How about London? I guess so. How about $1 billion of digital property in the greatest city in cyberspace? Seems okay. If you went to Donald Trump and you said, hey, I'm going to invest $1 billion in digital property instead of physical property in LA, he'd probably say, yeah, that's fine. So if you actually call it, and how many people say, oh, I'm a rich person, I bought $1 billion building in Miami Beach, but I'm worried the government's going to 6102 it. Nobody ever said the government is going to 6102 my $1 billion building, right? I mean, so you have the skeptic saying, oh, it's too good to be true, the government will ban it, but no one ever said the government will ban a building. And so if you think it's property, it just becomes a very straightforward proposition. If you think it's gold, I call it the good, the bad, and the ugly narrative, Guy. The good narrative or model is Bitcoin is digital property. The bad model is Bitcoin is digital gold. The ugly model is Bitcoin is digital currency. And it all comes down to the word, and you won't get past the word before someone comes right back over the top and tells you what they think. And let me, one last point, and you got the next question. My last point is, I can sit in a room of billionaires and I can say, if I said Bitcoin's digital currency, every one of them flinches and says, I know that's not going to fly here. And I can't come out against the real, the peso, the dollar, the euro, the CNY, the whatever. Okay. So all you got to do is say that and you get immediate no. Or I can say, they go, well, what's Bitcoin? Why should I buy it? I said, I bought it because it's digital property. It's the greatest city in cyberspace, and it's limited to 21 million blocks. And I think one day every rich person will want to live there, and every other person, everybody with money. And you know what they say? They go, oh, no one ever explained it that way. That makes total sense. Yeah, I get it. Yeah, I'll buy some.